When we first came to this land, we knew right away that we wanted to instill permaculture principles into our design and our vision. Community, shelter, water, food, energy, waste, and economics.
This pond behind us, that's the magic that makes this work in Bolinas. Bolinas has technically been in a drought for many years, and there's no way you could support the gardening and watering operations of two massive greenhouses or much farming if you didn't have a natural water table on site that fed this type of pond.
Water is what it's all about here. So this is a 3,000 gallon tank. Yeah, about half full. It allows us to have some localized rainwater catchment up here at the greenhouses. We'll be able to funnel all of the water from around the property down into the retention pond, which we'll see when we walk down that way. This pond is really what creates the entire viability of the project. Obviously, the main use is the agricultural retention, but we'd also like to recreate in the pond. We want to swim in the pond. So we inherited this amazing succulent garden, and really our idea here is to pay homage to that heritage and to accentuate these rare species of cacti and euphorbia. We're really looking at perennial food forest in this area.
My particular role in the project is designing the perennial food forest. So that started with site analysis, mapping, concept drawings, and is culminating in actually physically planting on site. This was the former site of the Marin Botanical Garden, so there's a lot of unusual, rare, and important plants here. So some of the trees that are here have been here for a long time, such as this loquat tree, and we're gonna basically build a guild around it. I'm putting in some medicinal white sage as part of the guild.
We are looking for a couple of good spots to lay down some mushroom spores. Today I'm doing oyster, and then in the spring we're going to try some shiitake logs and some giants, some red caps, and see what works well outside. And then we might even experiment with some indoor growing as well.
What we've really dug into is getting the land to a place where we can start to dream. And that could include educational components. We know we want to be heavily involved with the community. We know we want art in our lives.
I would love for this place, even at a small, tiny scale, to be an incubator, a playground, a sandbox for a better future aligned with regenerative principles.
To live in conjunction with nature, to have a place where the kids can play and run around and swim in the pond, and to share meals with family and friends. It really is a dream come true. Welcome to the former site of the Bolinas Botanical Garden at 250 Mesa Road here in Bolinas, California. Today we are presenting our cumulative project for EcoVersity's Permaculture Design Certification course, Class of Summer 2020. The project team consists of 8 amazing souls from around the world who worked together over the last few months to develop a phased approach to a large project scope and who took a deep dive into specific areas of interest. You will hear from each of them in the following presentation as we explore permaculture principles as a mechanism for systemic change and reimagine the way in which we want to live. My name is Tucker Warner, and I'll be providing a brief overview of our design project and property. I'll also dive into our comprehensive water strategy, including a full pond, dam, and intake reconstruction. The property itself is nearly 12 acres and located about 1 mile from the coast. We receive an average annual rainfall of about 40 inches per year, concentrated in the winter months, and 264 days deemed sunny. Bolinas is in a perpetual drought, which is worsening, and we only see rain for a small part of the year. Our property is on metered water, but this is limited to 150 gallons per day for the entire property. Because of this, metered water is for domestic use only. The part of Bolinas where we reside is situated on a shale shelf, thus there is no real option for drilling a well. The retention pond you see behind me is the only source for sustaining year-round irrigation, agriculture, and fire suppression. Our water plan begins with conservation, creating systems, patterns, and habits that reduce our need for water in general. This includes low-flow fixtures, native and drought-tolerant plants, low water aesthetics, and biodigesting toilets, to name a few. And then we concentrate on reuse, gray water systems, advanced septic and leach fields, infiltration, and water retention ponds. We've designed systems to maximize our wet season and rainwater catchment systems that include localized tanks to take advantage of the large roofs on the greenhouses and provide water right where we need it most without pumping. These tanks have overflow channels that are directed to drainage systems that head straight to the pond where it is collected and stored for the dry season. The pond is not lined, but a strong clay layer protects the stored water from leaching remarkably well. When we first arrived to the property, the land dam was failing. We rushed to rebuild the dam before the rains hit and remove dangerous vegetation that had rooted channels for water and erosion. We are currently working on an organic mitigation and management plan to account for 3 invasive and concerning plant species: duckweed, azolla, and parrot's feather. Depending on water quality, we may look to build a series of biofiltration ponds, solar-powered recirculation pumps, and aeration systems. When we need water from the pond, it is pumped to a pressurizing tank and throughout the property via a system of storage basins, where it can be accessed for irrigation and other use. We also have built a complementary network of channels that can be activated with a motorized pump. There are tap-ins along the system for 2-inch canvas fire hose that can be connected to rainbird sprinklers for fire suppression or limited, careful, and specific watering of meadows or orchards. We may need to utilize this system, for example, if we were experiencing uncharacteristic drought while seeding a meadow with cover crop. We plan to use drip systems, dry farming, and other techniques for limiting water use as a way of sustaining life on the farm.
Hi, this is Jaya. I designed the perennial food forest at 250 Mesa Road. In approaching this design, I asked the owners what plants will bring they and their families joy to taste, see, and smell year-round. I also considered how to be in harmony with and provide for the abundant wildlife. Then I observed and visited in person, watching sun patterns, taking soil samples, noting wildlife and what was growing well in gardens and farms all over Bolinas to determine which trees and plants would be best. First, the olive grove. This part of the food forest will line the road into the property, with trees planted in rows along this dry, sunny, wind-exposed slope. I plan to use a vetiver hedgerow system in between the rows of olive trees. By planting vetiver in rows on the contours of this slope, it will stabilize the hillside from further erosion, hold rainwater runoff in the soil, and create natural terraces. Since olive trees need wind for pollination, they will double as a windbreak for the annuals. A cob retaining wall bench will terrace the bottom of the olive grove slope, providing a shady spot to sit with a beautiful view of the pond and enjoy the aromatic olive tree guilds. The kitchen garden is closest to the main house and future communal kitchen space. This will be a densely planted, lush, and epic food forest. It is fully deer fenced and sits on the sunny southern side of the property. This will be a mixed fruit tree orchard with edible and medicinal plants, berries, and herbs incorporated into the guilds surrounding each tree. Each of the fruit tree guilds fans out from the central gathering point in this garden, which is the communal fire pit and seating area, creating organic, flowing paths to wander through and sample delicious food in year-round. An edible windbreak hedge of pineapple guavas will be planted between this garden and the adjacent apple orchard, where a chicken coop will also be located, allowing the birds to free range without getting into all the delicate annuals here in the kitchen garden. But the nesting boxes will be accessible along the fence line for collecting fresh eggs within steps of the kitchen. Edible vines like grapes, passion fruit, and golden kiwi will be planted along the fence line, adding even more lushness and abundance. Adjacent to this is the apple orchard, which will be home to a variety of heirloom apple trees. I've used a pattern of laying out this orchard in threes: nitrogen fixer, apple, pear, or plum tree, to ensure that there is as much disease resistance built in as possible by alternating the type of trees planted next to one another. Fava beans and perennial white clover will be planted in guilds and between the rows of trees, leaving the alleys clear to walk. Hedges of native elderberry and salvia will be planted as windbreaks, food for birds, and medicine for humans. In both the apple orchard and kitchen garden, barefoot-friendly, perennial native meadowgrass will be used as the ground cover on all paths. Finally, I'd like to acknowledge that taking this course and having the opportunity to connect with team members and classmates, whether across the world or right here in my own county, has been one of the most valuable aspects of working on this project. Working together in nature on this beautiful piece of land has been a wonderful, healing, and uplifting experience this past year. Thank you all.